Generation Drag Genesis, the 6th Divines Era booster set, comes out today in the English format, and one of the biggest chase cards, unfortunately, is the new effect trigger for each of the first 5 nations that have this effect here. All they do is that they have 0 attack, but they allow you to put it into soul after you use them to guard. And these have been very expensive on pre-sale and on the release today. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to take a look at the decks that actually use these, so you know whether or not it's worth investing in these very expensive double rare effect triggers. So I have all of the nations and each of their decks lined up here. We'll go nation by nation. I know I spelled Stoichia wrong. I don't care. We're just going to go nation by nation, and we're just going to take a look at all the decks, see what decks actually need or benefit even remotely from this new effect trigger, and take out the ones that don't. And we'll see what we're left with afterwards, right? So starting here from the top, we can go through these relatively easily. So something like here, the I think this can stay. Like the 2 dress decks, I feel like they can benefit from this because they tend to use a lot of soul for their effects, so I think we can keep this there. Something like Gigantic Overlord's not really going to need that, especially because they're going to be using the Blazing Warcry whenever the heck they get that. Even though it is a stealth PG, I don't think that Megaloguchi actually benefits from it at all, to be honest. Tamayura actually makes good use of this. Actually makes good use of this order, so I think, or sorry, this effect trigger, so we can keep Tamayura here. Zedlands doesn't really need the soul, personally. Shiranui heavily makes good use of this due to the fact that all of its restands use soul. So being able to have access to this is pretty good, I think so. Spinal Marquise might actually make some use of this because it currently is playing the what people call the Eugene dinosaur, but the little double rare drag dinosaur from set 5 that is Soul Blast 1 on attack to get power. So you might use it for this. Triumph Dragon has no reason for the soul right now, and it has its own promo that gives it soul. The Gryandra doesn't really have a need for this. Varilla, not really. I don't think he needs it. Cold Blaze uses soul in a strange way, but it needs specific units in its soul, so I don't think it's going to really need that. Shoujo Doji can make use of this because you can put the trigger into soul after you guard with it, then put that into your bind zone to then guard with that. So we'll leave that there. Alaka Libre also uses quite a bit of soul, so to an extent it might actually be usable in this deck. I feel like Eugene doesn't really need this. I don't think Varga really makes use of this. I don't think Gandiva makes use of this, to be honest, and I don't believe neither does the new Vermilion the Blood, nor the new Bob Saga, nor the new Wellbrow that hasn't even been released in Japan even, because I've been playing this in Dear Days, and I don't believe this actually needs it either. So that leaves us really with just these 7 decks for Dragon Empire that can actually make the most use, in my opinion, of this effect trigger. And it's not even like these are must-haves for any of these decks. I probably should have made that clear from the start, because I know you guys are probably typing in the comments angrily about your opinions, because your opinions are always right. But I feel like these decks can at least make use of it, and you can make a case for these decks. Whether or not they're a must-have or not, that's totally dependent on to you. But I feel like these decks can actually make use of them, and it makes sense to play them in these. So if you play these, I would pick them up, you know, and you can test it out, find out for yourself, or test it out before you get it. But if you play any of these, I probably don't even worry about it right now, right? With that said, let's move on to the Nation of Dark States. That many of you probably think is the most used in all of these decks, because the Nation of Dark States revolves around having cards in soul, right? So you would think that this nation, all of the decks here actually make use of this effect trigger. So first things first, we have here the Grade 4 Bruce. This one's a bit, you know, arguable. Like I'm gonna leave it here because it does Soul Blast 5 to restand. So just having the ease of having that in soul, an easy way to get soul. Not that this deck has an issue getting soul, but maybe it wouldn't be that bad. Something like the both of these doesn't really need this because he needs specifically grade 3s in Soul. So we'll do it in reverse order here, so I don't have to just go down so far. Chronojet, I feel like is going to make a lot of use of this, right? Because it's notoriously been able to use the essentially GG engine to play GG Soul Blast to draw in the early stages of the game. So being able to essentially guard with an effect trigger, put it into Soul, and then Soul Blast it out again with GG. Pretty good. I feel like that's going to see a lot of play here, possibly in Chronojet. The Vehement's Bruce, I don't think needs as much Soul as the other Bruce, right? So we'll go ahead and take him out here. The Chaos, you'll play at least one copy in Chaos. I think you'll play one copy in Chaos, right? I think you'll absolutely play one copy in Chaos. Greedon, I don't feel like he really needs that. To be honest, he needs like not Direful Dolls, whatever Devils is his thing, something Devils, I forgot the first thing of it. He needs those in Soul, I think, more than he does like just random cards to an extent. Omnium Grujo, even though it's a deck that focuses on triggers, it doesn't really need these to be in Soul. It needs them in Drop. Actually, it doesn't really want them in Soul per se. You know, kind of the same thing with Drag Jewel. Doesn't really need these triggers. It has no problem getting Garrett Zeros into Soul, honestly. Altergeist, Allsoilergeist, doesn't really need this. Direful Dolls, if it was a Direful Doll PG, but it is just a random named effect trigger right now, there's no archetype behind it, so you can't really do anything with Direful Dolls. Bladmire, you can maybe make a case for. I accidentally skipped timestamping. You can maybe make a case for Bladmire just because maybe it'll make it easier for you to make sure that you get enough Soul, but I'm gonna say no. Timestamping Dragon, I'm pretty sure doesn't need it, but you guys can correct me on that. Lukier also doesn't need this. She needs specific cards in Soul, not just random cards in Soul. And the Sacrifice Glass really doesn't use any Soul at all, for the most part, right? The Barrel Magnus here really wants this. 4 copies, because you want to get as many cards that can go into Soul as possible. Harry, on the other hand, is one of those decks that needs specific cards in Soul. Getting random cards in Soul is not really that big of an issue, right? Liel Odom, I feel like could maybe use this, but I don't really think it's that Soul intensive where you need it. Arbneal needs grade 3, so it doesn't really need this in Soul. The brand new Almagester Unica Stellar, or Bico Stellar, one of those two, is a strange one. This one maybe you can use because it does still Soul Blast 3. So it has a billion ways to get stuff back into Soul, but maybe, yeah, maybe. And then this brand new girl whose name I'm blanking out on, but she's the new promo boss for Dark States. I don't believe she needs this either. She focuses on having orders in Soul, not specifically triggers. So strangely enough, less cards or less decks in Dark States than in Dragon Empire actually need these effect triggers per my calculations. Please let me know in the comments how I'm wrong and how I'm bad at this. If we move on, not up, we want to go down, go to the next ones. Here we got Keter Sanctuary here, which this one does have an archetype name tied to it, so the effect trigger is actually called a Divine Sister. That's something to keep in mind for one specific deck. So with that said, I don't think Majesty Lord Blaster needs this in Soul. I don't think Phantom Blaster has any issues with Soul. It actually puts cards into Soul, so it'll be fine. Minerva is one of those decks that wants specific cards in Soul. It doesn't just want anything into Soul. It does Soul Blast, but I really don't think it needs this. Hexorb Sorceress, I feel like I actually might want this because she needs to Soul Blast each time to restand. So that might be a way if the deck suffers from Soul. I don't know if it does right now. I've not played the new Hexorb at all, to be honest. So I'll put this here as a maybe. Thegria is an interesting one because she does have a lot of cards that make her discard, and some of them do make her use Soul, but she also puts a lot of cards into Soul. So I'm gonna say no. I don't think Thegria needs this. Ezel here. Wand Ezel. I don't really think he does. I know he has a Soul Blast effect. That's Soul Blast 1, and that's it. Yeah, I don't think this deck is dying for Soul per se, so I'm gonna say no for Ezel. Bastion of Cord, probably not. doesn't really need soul like that. Youthberg fills up his deck with soul, so he'll be fine. The Luard here. I mean, I guess maybe for more easy use of painkiller, maybe there's that. Maybe there's an application there. I struggle to make a strong case for it, so I'm gonna say no. Luon doesn't, well, not really, no, because he gets technically soul every turn, and you want to soul blast every single turn, so no, not really. The Hamveld, that I usually just call Hamfat, I don't think this needs it either. This is order focus, it doesn't specifically need soul like that. The Sarassel here, maybe, because this has like Tetrafault, but I don't think so. It also again has a promo that gives it soul, so I don't think it's dying for it. Liel Armorta, I actually think this does need it, because currently this deck relies on having basically a unit and then the same unit in your deck, right? The same named unit in your deck. The only way right now to really put stuff back into the deck is its double rare, that's Soul Blast 1, and then you have stuff like the what's his name, the Gab Lewis, that's Soul Blast 1. So maybe here, right? Maybe here. Mortaline, I don't think needs this. Alden, maybe he has 2 cards as Soul Blast. Well, he Soul Blast for his Divine skill, which is whatever, but then he has the grade 3 that's Soul Blast to like restand, or yeah, to restand. But maybe. I don't think this has the Nibiris, so I don't think it needs this. Solarian used to have problems with soul, ironically, but I feel like that was patched up in set 2 of the Vines, and then now that it has the mass package, I really don't think it has an issue with soul. Grandgrace Sieg doesn't have any problems with soul either. Hound Riser is a new deck from set 7. To my understanding, this doesn't really use soul that much, where I think it'll need this, because I know I was testing this and I was able to use the new Pride Cyclers pretty easily, so I'm pretty sure it does not. And then finally, the deck that can actually use this, because it's an archetype name, is the new promo Divine Sister. Doesn't really need this. it's like it's a deck that needs more specific archetype names, but this needs archetype names to call from the deck or add to hand. You don't really want to add a trigger to your hand, I don't think, or call it out, or to restand a trigger, because you would call something out, Soul Blast out a Divine Sister, I think it is, to restand, or Soul Blast out herself to restand it. So, and then it goes to soul. Yeah, ironically, she doesn't need it. She does not need it. So yeah, it doesn't look like basically anything in Keter really needs its effect fronts. And these are like ones that I'm not even sure of. The only one that I'm maybe sure of is Hextrip Sorceress. And that might not even be like true. This is like a maybe, I feel like. And this one, like, I feel like is really just like a no. If I'm being honest, I feel like this is a no. We'll see. Then we'll go here into the land of Brandt Gate. So this one's the one that's actually the most, I think, expensive for the most part. It's between this one and the Stoichia one that are going to be really difficult to get because of a specific deck that makes them expensive. So let's take a look here. Brandt Gate has a Prison who doesn't... Well, okay, so Prison's a weird one. Prison can actually make use of this because it does have that... Not that it's specific to it, it's a Blitz card. But it does have... It used to run that one promo that says, like, when your opponent calls something from soul, you Soul Blast 1 draw. So this would fill up your soul so you can use that more often. But I don't think they're actually playing that card anymore. So I'm going to say no based on the fact that I don't think they're playing that anymore. Heroes typically don't really have an issue with soul. They can generate soul their own way. So I'm pretty sure they don't really need this. Elglima, the bat, yeah, has no problem with this. Messiah is the deck that is making this card really expensive because Messiah says essentially, or the crest says, at the end of your turn, every card that you unlock, you can Soul Blast 1 and draw for each one of those. So that's a lot of soul. This allows you to get that. So this is a 4 in Messiah, which is why this is really expensive, because Messiah is looking like one of the best decks, I think the best deck, out of set 6, because there's not really a lot of decks coming out of this set. Or at least new-ish decks or whatever. So this is the one that's really being used in. Whereas like Vanguard really doesn't need this right now. Eva has enough ways to get soul, ironically. So does Silhouette here. Orpheus Mask isn't really suffering for soul. Gravidian Mask isn't really suffering for soul. This has to play for Bulba Mine, so it's not suffering for soul. Welstra can actually make use of it because this deck always needs more resources, but it has a lot of ways to get it right now to an extent. So I'll leave it here, but I feel like it's not the case. Rotovisor doesn't really use soul. Dayusha fills up its souls with dimensional robos. Arkwright could like maybe use it because it could use its soul more. It does have 2 cards that say Soul Blast 2, but they're not essential to the deck's game plan. But they could be, right? So like maybe just for the sake of having numbers here in Brandt Gate, Impaldio really just use the counterblast for everything, and then the new deck, Vesser Goblin, whatever, I don't think needs this as well. So ironically for Brandt Gate, even though it's going to be the most expensive one, you're really only looking for it in Messiah. I would not pick it up if you play Arkwright, but maybe just in case. And Welstra, I feel like you can maybe make a case for it in Welstra. And you know, oops, I keep moving it up. I want you to go down, and I want you to go down, right? And then that just leaves us here with Stoichia. Stoichia. Ironically, I took a look at this, and it looks like I think all these decks, all these nations here have 20 decks in them, except for Brandt Gate and Stoichia, which actually have like 17 or something like that. Or what looks like 16, I guess is the number. And I think the other ones have like 19 or something like that. But let's take a look here. Flagberg probably can make use of this, right? Because this deck notoriously suffers from soul. The deck is kind of in a different spot right now thanks to its support from set 5, but I feel like you could still probably make an argument for this. Magnolia Elder, specifically Elder. We know we have a new Magnolia on the way, but it hasn't been revealed at this point in time. I don't think this really has issues with soul. It has the Godot, so it doesn't really have a need for that. Grand Fia has mushrooms. The Hodo mushrooms, I don't think it has an issue with soul. Claudine, like baby, right? Claudine and Mythiarch, maybe they use soul for a lot of things. Like this needs Soul Blast 1 to restand. It needs Soul Blast 1 to call out its the little goblin from drop. Whatever the hell it's called, Risumi or something like that, right? Like maybe. I feel like you rather draw triggers in this deck. Claudine has a Soul Blast to either get drive or to call tokens or something like that. So like maybe for these two. Magnolia Mask? To an extent, maybe. But I don't really think so. I think it had an issue before when you were using like Rancor Chain, but now with the new Magnolia line, I don't think you're a little bit tight on soul because you have to use the wrenches that CB1 Soul Blast. But I think you're fine. I'm gonna say no. Leonard, I don't really think this deck has an issue with soul. Like it could be almost tight, but I think it's fine. You can maybe make an argument for it, but I don't think it's that strong of an argument, and I think you play draws in that anyways. Cristianos actually wouldn't mind this because there are some cards he can use that use soul, and he has no real way to get soul, I guess. And Veleno has that one bug that's Soul Blast 2 to call stuff back. She doesn't really get soul pretty easily, so that would open her up to maybe using something like the B Blitz Order, that Soul Blast 1, now that she can put something into soul. So like maybe, yeah. Zorga used to really have soul issues. I don't think the new one has soul issues. I also don't really care about Zorga, so I'm gonna put him there. Stoichia, from the little bit that I played for it, did have a bit of a soul issue, so maybe it's playable in this. Night Rose is the big one that everyone wants to play this in, because this constantly every turn is using the enlarge Golv, whatever, the grade 3 stride support card, to constantly Soul Blast and bounce stuff from drop back to hand. So yeah, this is going to be played as a 4 of in Night Rose. Leverage Dress, I feel like Eevee, because you don't necessarily have soul issues, but you also don't want to Soul Blast out your Leverage Dresses if you have the option to. Maybe, probably not, but maybe. Aurora in this new form doesn't really have soul issues, so I don't think it needs it. Maelstrom does not need it, and the new Argo Sirens, I believe is not needed either. Yeah, some of these are a bit of a stretch overall, but it seems like the vast majority of decks currently do not make good use of these brand new effect triggers, and the good majority of, I feel like, the ones that I said could make use of it really don't. So the only ones that you really need this for are, I want to say, Nitros, maybe these three really, or maybe these two specifically, these two specifically, these two specifically, this, you need one copy in this. I feel like this is going to use it, and I feel like it's good in this, right? And it's good in this, in my opinion. It's good in this, and it's good in this, and I feel like it's okay in these two. So overall, not that many decks use these effect triggers. So I say this as a way of, like, maybe don't spend $30-$40 on these cards right now if you don't need them, but at the same time, they are effect triggers. They will be very expensive in the future, so I'm sorry that I'm giving you both sides of the argument here. I'm saying don't buy these, but also buy them, because I understand they will be gone very soon, very expensive, and probably not reprinted for a very long time. But if you feel like your deck isn't anywhere near these types of decks, then maybe you don't need it. You know, if you're interested vaguely in playing any of these decks, maybe pick it up, watch it when it goes down in price. All right, but hey, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Till next time, take care of yourselves and each other, play Vanguard, and have yourselves a damn good one.